My family stole $40,000, wrecked my grandpa's car, and left me at the airport, so I do it. And then, I never thought I'd be the kind of guy who walks away from his entire family, but 5 years ago, I packed up my life in a single night and never looked back. I didn't leave in anger, at least not at first. I left because after years of trying to be enough for them, I finally realized I never would be. My name's Carter. I'm 36 now, but this story begins when I was 31. I had just gotten my first steady job out of trade school, managing renovation crews for a mid-sized construction firm in Indiana. It wasn't flashy work, but it was honest and paid well enough for me to get out of the rental rut and finally feel like I was building something for myself. My parents didn't say much about it. My dad, Howard, just grunted, "About time you started pulling your weight." That was his version of pride. Meanwhile, my younger sister Paige, who was 28 at the time, had just landed a job at some trendy marketing agency. My parents threw her a party, popped champagne, gave her a new tablet. I didn't even get a handshake. That wasn't anything new. Paige had always been the golden one. She got good grades, joined the right clubs, wore the kind of smile that could talk circles around people. My parents adored her. She could crash a car, and they'd ask if the tree was okay. I once broke my arm during baseball practice. My dad didn't even show up to the hospital. When I made varsity senior year, he skipped every single game to drive Paige to debate tournaments. That's just how it was in our house. I got used to it. Or I thought I did. Years passed. When my dad decided to retire at 57 because of a bad back, which somehow didn't stop him from playing 18 holes every weekend, their finances fell apart. They didn't tell me that directly, of course. It came out in bits and pieces: missed payments, panicked calls, my mom crying over bills she couldn't cover. I ended up setting up a secret deal with my financial advisor to send $750 a month toward their mortgage. My parents thought the bank was giving them a break. In reality, I was footing the difference. They never knew. Same with the insurance. Dad's retirement plan had garbage coverage, so I added both of them to my health plan through work. I told HR they lived with me part-time. Cost me an extra $600 a month. Again, not a word of thanks. They just assumed they'd lucked into better benefits. But the worst? The car. Paige's husband, Sean, this smug finance guy with a jawline sharper than his judgment, had terrible credit. Somehow, they convinced me to co-sign for a new car. A midnight blue coupe with leather seats. Sleek, expensive, completely unnecessary. Every few months, they'd miss a payment, and the bank would call me to step in. I covered it each time just to keep my credit intact. They never even mentioned it. Still, I kept quiet. I told myself I was doing the right thing, that I was better off being the dependable one. Until Grandpa died. My grandfather and I were close. Real close. He was the only one in the family who ever made me feel seen. When I was a kid, he taught me how to change oil, rebuild an engine, and curse creatively when bolts refused to budge. We spent a decade restoring his '69 Pontiac Firebird together. That car was our project, our pride. He used to say, "This ride's got more soul than all of us combined." When he got sick, I was the only one who visited every day. Paige came by once or twice with excuses and a Starbucks cup. When he passed, he left the Firebird to me. It meant everything. Not just because it was a classic, but because it was the only real acknowledgement I'd ever gotten from someone in the family. The rest of them lost it. My dad shouted that it should have gone to Paige. My mom cried about fairness. Paige. She rolled her eyes and said she didn't even want the thing, but somehow still managed to make it sound like I stole it. I thought that would be the end of it. But 2 days after the funeral, I found my dad out by the garage with the hood popped open. Said he was checking the brake fluid. I didn't think much of it until I drove it to work and something fell off. Took it to a buddy's shop. He pulled me aside and said, "You're lucky you didn't get on the freeway. Someone messed with your brake line." I didn't need proof. I knew who did it. That night, I packed a bag, walked out of that house, and drove 900 miles to Santa Fe. Changed my number. Deleted all social media. Set up a new address. I disappeared. And for the first time in my life, I felt free. Here's the messed up part. I kept paying. The mortgage, the insurance, the car. For 3 more years, I made those payments like some invisible guardian, protecting people who would rather see me wrecked than behind the wheel of Grandpa's car. I told myself it was guilt, that I couldn't stand the thought of them losing everything. Maybe it was just habit. But in Santa Fe, I built something real. I found a job that respected me, colleagues who treated me like I mattered. I met Jess, a nurse with a wicked laugh and zero tolerance for bullshit. She didn't care about my past. She liked my calloused hands and my quiet way of fixing things. The only family I kept in touch with was Brett, my cousin from my mom's side. He moved to New Mexico a year after I did. Said he'd had enough of the family circus too. We grabbed beers, talked shop, kept each other sane. Life, for once, felt like it was mine. I was no one's safety net. No one's second choice. Just Carter. And then, 5 years after I left, Brett walked into the bar one night and dropped the match that would set it all on fire again. "They've been asking about you," he said. That's how it started. At first, I laughed it off. I thought Brett was joking, or maybe just testing the waters to see how I'd react. But he wasn't. He leaned in, told me how my dad had some kind of minor heart scare, nothing dramatic, just enough to spook him. And suddenly they were having these long, reflective talks about family and regrets. "They miss you," Brett said. I snorted into my beer. "They miss my paychecks." Brett didn't argue. He just shrugged. Maybe, but maybe they finally get it. People can change. I wanted to believe him. As much as I told myself I didn't care, there was still a part of me that wondered if I'd made the right call. I'd vanished without a word. Maybe, just maybe, 5 years was long enough for people to change. So I thought, all right, I'll test the waters. I unblocked their numbers, sent a single message to the old family group chat. Just 6 words, "Hey, it's Carter. I'm still around." What followed was a tsunami of calls, texts, voice messages. My mom left a voicemail sobbing. My dad actually said he missed me. He used the word proud. That nearly made me drop the phone. "Paige." She acted like nothing had ever happened. "We were just talking about you," she texted, as if we'd lost touch over a vacation. Not because her husband and my dad tried to sabotage my car. I kept it light. Short calls, casual updates. I didn't share much, just that I was still in Santa Fe, working, seeing someone named Jess. I didn't mention the promotions, the condo, the investment portfolio, or the '69 Pontiac I was still driving with fresh tires and a rewired brake line. For a while, it seemed okay. My dad didn't make any jabs. My mom actually listened when I talked. Even Paige seemed less smug, asking questions about Jess and pretending to care. There was a weird kind of peace to it, like the family I'd wanted was finally starting to show up. Then they brought up the trip. "We're planning something special," my dad said during one of our Sunday calls. "Big family trip. Switzerland, New Year's. Our treat." I didn't say anything right away. He rushed to fill the silence. "It's not about the destination. It's about making up for lost time." I should have known better. I should have seen it coming. But I wanted to believe. After months of phone calls, messages, little gifts they mailed to my apartment, thanks to Brett slipping them my address, I started thinking maybe this was it. The big gesture. The olive branch. The real chance to close the gap. So I said yes. I booked 2 weeks off work. Huge ask in my line of business, especially right before a big winter renovation project was about to launch. My supervisor wasn't thrilled, but I told him this might be my only chance to finally get some closure with my family. Jess helped me pack. She even picked out thermal wear and found me a travel guide. She couldn't come, hospital shifts were tight, but she kissed me at the door, said, "Go find out if they mean it." So there I was, standing in line at Albuquerque International, passport in hand, brand new luggage by my feet, flight confirmation email printed out in my pocket. I'd spent nearly $1,000 on new clothes, gear, and little things for the trip. I felt nervous but excited. Like maybe, for once, this would be different. Then I got to the counter. The woman tapped away at her keyboard, then frowned. She checked the screen again, typing slower this time. "I'm sorry, sir, but your ticket's been canceled." My stomach dropped. "What? That's not possible. It's under the name Howard. Whole family's traveling." She nodded. "Yes, I see the family reservation. The others have already checked in. But your specific ticket, it was canceled yesterday afternoon." I stepped aside, my hand shaking as I pulled out my phone. I called Paige. She picked up on the second ring. "Hey," I said, trying to stay calm. "There's a problem with my ticket." There was a pause. Then she laughed. Not loud. Just a quiet, smug little breath of air that told me everything I needed to know. "Oh, Carter, did you really think we wanted you there?" I froze. She kept going. "This was Mom and Dad's idea, to see if you'd actually show up. A little loyalty test. Guess what? You failed." "What the hell are you talking about?" I said, my voice rising. "You abandoned us for years," she snapped. "You think you can just waltz back in because you feel like it? Mom and Dad might be desperate enough to forgive you, but Sean and I, we see through you. You were never coming back for the right reasons. You just wanted another chance to play hero. You planned this." "Oh, it gets better. Sean came up with the idea. We were going to just ghost you, but he thought this would be more memorable." I didn't respond. I couldn't. My hand was clenched so tight around the phone, I thought I'd crack the screen. Have fun spending New Year's alone, she added, then hung up. And just like that, I was standing in the middle of the terminal, surrounded by families heading off to new adventures, with nothing but a dead phone line and the echo of her laughter in my ear. I tried calling my parents. No answer. I texted both. Nothing. An hour later, my dad sent a single message. Paige told us what happened. Maybe this is for the best. We'll talk when we get back. No apology. No explanation. Just that. Like I was the problem. Like I'd somehow caused this. I didn't know what to do. I just sat down on a bench near the baggage claim and stared at nothing. All that planning. All that hope. Crushed in one call. I called Jess. She was back within an hour. She didn't say anything when I got in the car, just reached across the console and grabbed my hand. That was the only moment I didn't feel completely alone. Back at my place, I sat on the couch and pulled up every message, every email, every receipt. I started thinking about all the times my mom asked about my job, about how she accidentally opened my bank statement that one time, about how my dad kept bringing up the idea of adding him as a backup on my accounts in case of emergencies. That's when it hit me. They hadn't changed. They were just trying to find a new way back into my wallet. Everything, the calls, the gifts, the trip, it wasn't about me. It was about access. They didn't want a son. They wanted a lifeline. I stared at my phone as the notifications started rolling in. Messages from Paige. Come on, it was just a joke. Don't be so sensitive. We were going to book you a new flight. I didn't reply. My parents stayed silent. I sent Brett a message. You were wrong. They're the same. I'm done. He called me that night. Tell me what happened. I told him everything. When I finished, he was quiet. I swear I didn't know, Carter. I really thought. I know, I said. But now I need your help. For what? I need to shut it all down. Every last thing. He didn't even hesitate. Whatever you need, man. The next morning, I woke up early, head pounding from lack of sleep. I didn't even make coffee. I just sat at the kitchen table and stared at the folder I kept with all my financial documents. The paper trail of 5 years spent supporting people who had done nothing but take. I started making calls. First up was my financial advisor. Shut it down, I said before he could even ask how I was. Stop the mortgage payments immediately. He was quiet for a second. You're sure? You know they're 3 months away from foreclosure without your contributions. I'm sure, I said. Let the bank figure it out. That call alone felt like I'd finally unclenched a fist I didn't realize I'd been holding for years. Next, I called the bank that held the car loan for Sean's coupe. Explained that I was withdrawing from the co-signed agreement and removing my credit backing. The woman on the phone hesitated. They'll have to refinance at nearly double the rate. Perfect, I said. Also, flag the account. No more extensions. I'm not covering for them again. Then came the health insurance. I called HR, told them it was a qualifying life event. I'd had a falling out with my parents, and they no longer lived with me part-time. The woman on the other end didn't sound surprised. Honestly, she said, it always seemed strange you were paying their premiums. I didn't reply. I just thanked her and hung up. I opened every app one had and started pulling their names out of my life. Netflix, gone. Amazon Prime, unlinked. Spotify, revoked. I even killed the Costco card my mom used to brag about to her bridge club. Then I remembered something else. Back when things were looking good, before I agreed to the trip, I prepaid the second week of their hotel stay in Switzerland as a peace offering. I pulled up the reservation, called the hotel, and canceled it on the spot. Would you like a refund, sir? The clerk asked in a cheerful accent. You bet I would. And just like that, they'd find themselves halfway through their big family healing trip, without a place to sleep. Later that evening, Brett called, voice low. You're not gonna believe this. You had a joint investment account with your dad. What are you talking about? He's been bragging to my dad about it, saying you set it up as a way of making amends. My blood ran cold. I'd opened an investment account after college, something I hadn't looked at in years. The statements must have still gone to my parents' address after I moved. I grabbed my keys and drove straight to the bank. The manager looked nervous when she pulled up the file. It appears your father was added as a joint owner last year. I stared at her. I never authorized that. She slid over a form. This is the signature on the authorization. It looked like mine almost. This is fraud. She nodded. We'll launch an internal investigation immediately. I left with a printed statement showing a balance of just over $21,000. My name was still the primary, but if I hadn't shown up when I did, that would have changed real fast. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not out of anger. I felt calm, eerily calm. Like something inside me had finally gone quiet. All those years of carrying them, of paying without thanks, of being treated like an afterthought while quietly keeping them afloat, I was done. I sent one final group message. Hope you enjoyed your vacation without me. Consider this my final goodbye. Don't contact me again. Then I blocked every number. 3 days later, I got a ring notification. Movement at my front door. It was them. Howard, Elaine, Paige, and Sean, all standing in my hallway, still wearing travel clothes and looking furious. Their faces were stiff, tired, sunburned. I almost didn't answer. But then I thought, screw it. I opened the door. My mom started first. Carter, what is going on? The hotel canceled our reservation. The insurance is gone. The bank says our mortgage assistance ended. What is this? I leaned against the doorway and let the silence stretch. My dad stepped forward. We've never taken a dime from you. That was when I walked into the living room, grabbed the folder, and returned. I handed it to him. He flipped through the pages: mortgage receipts, payment logs, health coverage confirmations, car loan records. Paige looked like she was about to faint. For 5 years, I said, I carried you. And even after I left, I kept doing it. You didn't thank me. You didn't ask. You just kept taking. Paige started crying. You can't just abandon us. We're going to lose everything. I stared at her. I'm not abandoning you. You did that to me years ago. Sean opened his mouth. We didn't know you were helping with the bills. That's on you. And the airport stunt? I asked. That was just a fun little test? He shrugged. It was a joke. You destroyed any chance of reconnection. My dad tried to soften. We've all made mistakes. You can't just cut us off. Actually, I said, I can. And I have. They stood there in silence. Now get out, I said. Before I call the cops. They left. I didn't sleep that night either. But this time, it wasn't rage or grief keeping me up. It was relief. Brett called the next day. You good? Yeah. They're back home now. And they're pissed. My mom said your dad's ranting about revenge. What's he gonna do? I said. Loosen my brakes again? We both laughed, but it wasn't really funny. That's when I realized I needed to be ready. So I installed 2 new cameras, one over my parking spot, another above the back entrance. I told the front desk to never let them into the building without my permission. I warned Jess. I made copies of everything. If they wanted a war, I'd be ready. I thought that would be the end of it. But of course, it wasn't. It happened just 3 days later. I was getting ready for work, coffee in hand, when my phone buzzed with a ring alert. I swiped it open, expecting to see a package delivery or maybe one of the neighborhood cats wandering past the door. Instead, there they were on camera, my parents, Sean, and Paige, all of them standing in the shadows of the parking lot next to my condo. They weren't talking. They were working. Sean had a bat in his hand. My dad was crouched by the tires. Paige held a can of spray paint, and my mom stood a few feet away, glancing around nervously. It was surreal. They took turns. One by one, they destroyed the only thing that had ever meant something to me, the '69 Pontiac Firebird my grandfather left me. Tires slashed. Windows shattered. The message sprayed in screaming red letters across the side. You shouldn't have messed with us. And Paige, the little cherry on top, snapped a selfie with the car when she was done. I don't remember how long I stared at the footage. Long enough for the adrenaline to kick in. Long enough for the mug in my hand to go cold. I called the police before I even went outside. I wanted them to see it fresh. I wanted the officers to see the damage the way I did, the shreds of what little legacy I'd been given by the only man in the family who ever gave a damn about me. The Firebird was totaled. And not just physically, it was ruined in the kind of way you don't fix with a new windshield or a fresh coat of paint. It was personal. That was the point. They didn't just want to hurt me. They wanted to break the one thing that still connected me to someone who loved me. Frank came over that night. I showed him the footage. He didn't say much, just watched the screen with his jaw clenched and his hands gripping his knees. Bob's finally gone off the deep end, he muttered. And dragging everyone else with him. They're gonna face charges, I said. The cops already took the report. They're pulling records. Sean's on probation. It's gonna be worse for him. Good, Frank said. Let it be worse. But he had one more idea. Send the video to the local news station, he told me. They love stories like this. Especially when it's people pretending to be perfect in a small town. He was right. I sent them the clip. The anchor called back within hours, said they'd run the story in the evening broadcast. That night, it aired, security footage in full display, headlines blasting. Local couple arrested after vandalizing son's classic car over family dispute. The footage spoke for itself. But the real kicker? They got arrested during Sunday brunch at their country club. According to Frank's golf buddy, people recorded it on their phones. There were gasps. Someone actually dropped their mimosa. It was glorious. Sean, of course, was held without bail. The vandalism violated his probation. My dad and mom managed to post bond. but not without hemorrhaging whatever was left of their savings. Paige. She went silent. The fallout was swift. Mortgage payments, now solely their responsibility, went unpaid. The bank moved toward foreclosure. Creditors started calling. Their membership at the country club was suspended, then revoked entirely. I got weekly updates from Frank. Elaine had to sell off her prized glassware collection. My dad, once the man who mocked anyone without a tie, took a night shift job as a mall security guard. Paige filed for divorce within 6 months. Sean had gambled away most of their money even before the arrest. She didn't stand a chance. They went from power couple to pariah in record time. Meanwhile, I filed an insurance claim for the Firebird. The payout wasn't enough to replace what I'd lost, but it was something. Enough to find another shell of a 69 and start over. I bought a stripped-down one from a guy out in Nevada, and every weekend, I started putting it back together. It wasn't the same, but it gave me something to work toward, like I was rebuilding more than just a car. Frank stepped up more than I ever expected. He called weekly, invited me to cookouts, introduced me at gatherings as the smart one. Brett and I got closer too. It felt strange having that kind of support after so many years of silence. It felt real. Then, one afternoon, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting right away. Elaine. Inside were 5 handwritten pages, rambling, tear-stained, filled with religious quotes and pleas for forgiveness. She said they'd learned their lesson, that they missed me, that family was forever. I wrote 2 words on the envelope and dropped it back in the box, returned to sender. A few days later, Frank called. Your mom's telling people you didn't even read her apology. I didn't, I said. Good, he replied. You don't owe them anything. Not after what they pulled. He was right. The Firebird, the betrayal, the humiliation at the airport, none of it was accidental. They did what they did because they never saw me as family. They saw me as a tool, a wallet, a backup plan. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even sad. I was just done. The rest of the family started pulling away from them too. Once the footage went public, people couldn't pretend anymore. Aunt Trish stopped returning Elaine's calls. Uncle Leo canceled Sunday dinners. Even people who'd stayed neutral during the earlier drama turned cold. The truth was too loud to ignore. 1 year after the vandalism, I saw a listing online. My parents' house. For sale. The place they bragged about endlessly, the one with the granite kitchen and custom tile that I helped pay for, was now being sold at a loss. They moved to the outskirts of town, into a rundown 1-story with weeds in the front yard and a foreclosure sticker still fading on the window. Elaine started selling vitamins on Facebook. Howard worked graveyard shifts and skipped church. Paige moved to Portland and barely spoke to them. And me? I was okay. Better than okay. Jess and I were talking about marriage. We got a dog. I finished rebuilding the new Firebird's engine and took it out for a test drive along the highway one crisp Sunday morning. The road felt clean, quiet, mine. But that wasn't the end. Because just when I thought things were finally still, something else landed in my lap. And it came from someone I never expected. It started with a phone call from an unknown number. I let it ring, figuring it was just another scammer. A minute later, I got a voicemail. This is Agent Holloway from the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We'd like to speak with you regarding a financial matter. Please call us back at your earliest convenience. My stomach dropped. I called back immediately. After a short hold and a few security questions, they connected me. Mr. Carter, thanks for returning the call. We're currently investigating a case of identity theft and bank fraud. Your name came up in association with several accounts linked to Robert and Elaine. That's when I learned the truth. The investment account wasn't the only thing my parents had gotten into. While poking through old records, the FBI discovered 3 credit cards opened under my name. Total balance across them? Just under 40 grand. All opened after I moved to Santa Fe. All maxed out. They used old mail, copied my signature, and even listed my previous employer on the applications. They hadn't just used me when I was there. They'd kept using me long after I vanished. The investigators said they'd uncovered the fraud while reviewing financial documents tied to another ongoing case. Apparently, Howard was already being looked into for falsifying paperwork on a separate loan application. That triggered a deeper audit, and my name showed up. I was stunned. I had no idea. You have the option to press federal charges, Agent Holloway said. If you do, this becomes a much more serious case. For 2 days, I didn't talk to anyone. Jess noticed right away. You okay? I nodded, but she didn't buy it. You've been quiet since that call. I finally told her. She didn't say, I told you so, or that's insane. She just nodded, took my hand, and said, do what gives you peace. And that was the hard part. Because as much as I wanted justice, a part of me knew that if I pulled this trigger, there was no going back. Not that I ever wanted to, but this would be it. The final cut. Federal time. No more family. Ever. Not even a letter in the mail. Then I got a message from Brett. Want to go to Prague? I thought it was a joke. But Brett explained that Uncle Frank had pitched an idea, a kind of twisted redemption trip. A reward for surviving hell. He'd racked up a ton of airline miles through work and wanted to use them to take me, Brett, and his son Caleb on a guy's trip. But there was a catch. He also wanted to invite my parents and Paige. But their flights would be booked out of Atlanta, not El Paso, where the rest of us were leaving from. Different airport. Different date. Different experience. A taste of their own medicine. I laughed harder than I had in weeks. Frank called me that night. They'll take the bait. I told them it's the only way to get direct flights. Sure enough, 2 weeks later, I got a text from Paige. Heard you're going to Prague. Excited to see you there. I didn't respond. We left early. Landed in Prague 2 days before them. Stayed in a beautiful old villa with arched windows and cobblestone views. Ate goulash and drank cold beer by the river. For once, I felt like I belonged in my own story. Then, on the day they were supposed to fly, Frank showed me a message from my dad. Traffic's a nightmare. We might miss our flight. Can you call the airline? That's when I sent Paige a single message, have a nice trip home. Then I blocked her. Later, I posted one photo from the trip. Me, Frank, Brett, and Caleb standing on the Charles Bridge, smiling like we hadn't been through hell to get here. I captioned it, best family vacation ever. 2 days later, Brett told me Paige had been spotted at a bar back in Georgia, yelling about betrayal. Perfect. But just when I thought I'd had my last laugh, the final twist arrived. I came home to a small, beat-up envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single item, the original key to my grandfather's Firebird. Not the new one I'd rebuilt, but the one they destroyed. I recognized the tiny notch near the edge. We'd filed that mark ourselves years ago, so we could always tell which key was real. There was also a note, written in trembling, careful handwriting. You were always better than us. Mom. That was it. No apology. No plea. Just 7 words. I didn't know how to feel. My first instinct was to throw it away. But I didn't. I put the key in a drawer next to my new Firebird spare. Not as a reminder of her, but as a reminder of me. Because for once, I'd made it out. I'd set my own boundary. And I never crossed it. I didn't go back. I didn't give in. I wasn't their pawn anymore. They broke everything trying to control me. But I came out whole. Better yet, I came out free.